Frank Avery is the second-year Executive Director for CareerSource North Central Florida, the regional workforce board serving Alachua and Bradford Counties. CareerSource is tasked with bringing businesses and workers together. He's a longtime workforce and economic development professional with experience working in the Carolinas and Florida. Prior to serving as Executive Director, Frank served as the External Affairs Director for CareerSource. He also served as a project manager for the Gainesville Area Chamber of Commerce and led local, regional, and multi-state initiatives in the Carolinas. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
You know, I've had so many of your predecessors on, but it's been a while since I've had Angela or Kim Tesh-Vaught join me, so glad to have you.
Yeah, no, happy to be here.
Why don't we start with just assuming that some of our listeners are not familiar with CareerSource, and tell me a little bit about the history of CareerSource.
Yeah, sure. So for folks that see CareerSource around the community, particularly in Alachua and Bradford Counties, most people see our career centers. You may know the one that we have over off University Avenue and Northwest 6th Street. And really at the end of the day, what our organization does is build a community of competitive talent. And what I mean by that is that businesses need to grow. The economy in Alachua and Bradford County, we always want to make sure that it's growing. And if those items are growing, if those areas are growing, then it means that we're creating new opportunities for jobs. And our role is to make sure that our community has the right folks ready to fill those kinds of jobs. And that's for everyone in the community. So it's not necessarily saying that we're picking and choosing folks. It means that we want to make sure that anybody in any community in our area has the opportunity to participate in that economic growth and create opportunity for themselves to grow their careers, to grow their opportunities for their families, and ultimately fulfill ideally what is their dreams for self-sufficiency in life and their career dreams.
Now, some people may remember you as Florida Works.
Yes,
You went through a name change 4 or 5 years ago, was it?
Yeah, exactly. So many folks who, fortunately for us, have good associations with the organization, they remember that name, Florida Works. The CareerSource North Central Florida as an organization is part of a long history of workforce development in the country. So if you look at it from the federal, state, and local level, at the federal level, the reason why CareerSource North Central Florida exists really is from welfare reform back in the mid-90s and a long history in America of trying to line up economic development, economic growth, but also trying to make sure that we're taking care of those among us and making sure that they have opportunities to grow themselves. Yeah.
Well, let's dig a little bit more into exactly what CareerSource is. So you are funded primarily by the federal government?
Exactly.
Is that correct?
So we are most recently funded under the We're most recently funded under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which establishes how our board is formed and authorizes over 700 workforce boards across the country.
Okay.
Here in North Central Florida, I think we're particularly fortunate because we have really one of the best boards through our citizen and business leadership on our boards. That's considered one of the top 5, top 10 workforce development boards in the country, and that's due a lot in part to the direction that our local citizens and that our local board has chosen to take over the years to help grow opportunities for people in the region.
And one of our county commissioners serves on your board. Who is it now? Is it
Sure, yeah, it's currently Commissioner Hutchinson. Before
right.
that was Commissioner Pinkison.
Right.
Quite a few have served over the years on our board.
And I know our board is very supportive of the CareerSource mission. So every region or every county in Florida is covered by a CareerSource region?
Yeah, so in the state of Florida, we're part of the CareerSource Florida network, as we call it. There are about, if I remember correctly, 67 counties in Florida, and there's 24 workforce regions. And so our organization covers Alachua and Bradford County. They're not all part of, I think it's easy to assume sometimes that because we share a name, we all share a similar way of doing things. There's certainly core components of what we do. So all of our workforce boards across the state have things like career centers available. But in terms of how we create opportunities for individuals, how we tailor workforce policy in the community, how we work with our community colleges, our business community, our chambers of commerce, it varies a lot across the state and across the country in terms of how workforce boards work.
So there's room for being creative and tailoring what you're doing.
Absolutely, it's a critical component of the workforce system. It is, while it may be federally funded, the spirit and the idea behind the federally funded workforce system is that there is room for local innovation, not just room for it, but that it's a key characteristic of it, that local communities really know best how to invest these funds into their community. Because at the end of the day, that's what these workforce boards are. They are workforce investment boards, as they used to be formally known in the law. And so they are no different really than when you look at a corporate board of directors for a startup or a major corporation. These are essentially citizen-driven investment boards, where at the local level across Alachua and Bradford counties, these 33 board members who are vetted by the county commissions, they're recommended by our leading agencies in the community, all by design under the law, they are being tasked with figuring out the best way to invest the roughly $8 to $10 million a year that's coming into this community for free, for really, other than the taxes you've already paid in. It's an opportunity to reinvest them here locally in your community, in your peers, and your businesses.
We like to see federal dollars coming back to our county.
Exactly.
So it's a very impressive board. I was taking a look at the your membership on the board the other day, and it's a good list of movers and shakers, and it's impressive. And there's 33. It's a large board.
It is a very large board, but it's one of the best opportunities that I think we really have in a community to take those leading business voices. Pretty much everyone in a business seat on our board, and our board's required to be, and we're glad that it is, over half C-suite business leaders. And so we're fortunate to have folks like Ethan Fieldman, who's a past chair of the board, who is also the founder of a very successful education training technology startup in StudyEdge. We have folks who are the presidents of our community banks across Alachua and Bradford counties. And what we have is an opportunity to take their expertise as business leaders, because they're not expected to be experts in federal policy or education policy. I mean, it certainly helps having an education technology startup on your board. We also have New Horizons and IT Pro TV on our board, which is a great expertise. But having the opportunity to pair those individuals with not just the federal dollars that come into the community, but then also the existing state assets in terms of access to the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, to board members like Dr. Sasser from Santa Fe College, to having folks from the Department of Children and Families, where business, government, education, and these community leaders get to come together to put a holistic policy together on how we grow jobs here.
You've mentioned 3 board members. I'm not going to ask you to name the other 29.
There is, I guess there is that thing where you don't ever want to name drop people and then leave off the others.
We'll move on.
I could do it if I needed to.
I've heard you in our conversations talk about part of your mission is to build a regional economy. What are you talking about in that phrase?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm biased, of course. I'm the executive director of an organization that helps grow and develop talent. But prior to working this, I worked in economic development. And one of the most critical components of any community's economic growth, of its long-term economic success, is having access to trained, qualified talent that's ready to go to work today, and that is going to be prepared for the work that's coming in the future down the road, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And so in that sense, I think that our organization, I think our board would agree, and many in the community I think would agree, that we are one of the critical players in terms of developing the region's economic identity, in terms of what are the next steps that the Chamber of Commerce, the counties, the different community leadership in the area, what are they going to take and do to develop the next steps in that community? And in our case, it's developing and growing that talent and lining it up. And we really do, I think, in 3 different ways. We have 3, I think, very strong strategies that help contribute to that. The first one is that we are very well aligned with the Gainesville Area Chamber of Commerce, and in Bradford County, the North Florida Chamber of Commerce. We're one of the only workforce development boards in the country where our 2 chambers of commerce that cover our region serve as our business services unit for the workforce system, so that they are going out and they're working with businesses to collect job listings, to identify what their needs are, and to figure out where they want to grow. And that's different because business usually doesn't want to necessarily work with government on a day-to-day basis like that. I mean, certainly they have to work with government in certain areas for permitting and those types of areas, but having an opportunity where we can take local innovation, work with the primary business association for the community, and give business that value add where now they have one destination that understands where they're going as a business community, as a unique community, and being able to tailor that to what their membership, as well as beyond that, what the other businesses in the community need. That's a unique opportunity that we have here. Yeah.
Can you put that in a real world example? Is there a company you can think of where perhaps the chamber began a recruitment process and then Florida CareerSource stepped in? I almost said Florida Works. I mean, are there examples of that you can share?
Well, it's happening every day.
Yeah.
And so it really is, I'd almost say it's not necessarily even a pass off. What it is it's a really strong integration between the two organizations where we're working with the staff and team, and many folks in the community know Joe Johnson, for example,
Sure.
and the work that he does with the Gainesville Chamber.
Uh-huh.
Joe's also very well versed and trained in all the assets of the workforce board, and he actually has the opportunity to work in those job boards. He gets training and works with our team on understanding how to onboard businesses who want to be a work site or want to go into being a place where folks can go through on-the-job training to learn how to do the work and get paid while they're doing it with a business.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with about 1,200 businesses a year, which out of the roughly 6,000 or so registered means we're working with about 1 in 6 businesses between Alachua and Bradford counties here in the community.
So I'm a business that has a need.
Yeah.
I have a workforce that I'm having a difficult time finding. How do you bridge that gap between folks that are looking for work and those businesses that need skilled or unskilled workers?
Yeah, so and that's kind of what I mean when I say that we are ideally serving as a community for talent. Because at the end of the day, through our job centers, through our relationships with the Gainesville Area Chamber of Commerce and the North Florida Chamber of Commerce, and the resources that we have through the nation's #1 community college and Santa Fe College, a number of very strong private sector and public sector training providers, the University of Florida, what we're able to do is create an ecosystem where any business can, for example, to kind of your question, they can walk up to Joe Johnson and say, hey, listen, I got to hire 5 people, and I need some people that know marketing, technology, and software, and open that conversation with Joe. And through our organization, what they have an opportunity to do, and what our organization offers back to them is great. What's the speed you're looking at? What is your timeline that you're looking to grow? What are those skill sets that you need?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that business comes back and says, well, you know, we really need to be hitting this launch point in our product, or we need to be hitting, we need people really, we're short in this kind of area for a certain type of manufacturing skill, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Our team has the opportunity to take all sorts of different tools in our toolkit to go back in the Career Center, work with individuals who are looking for work for all sorts of reasons, whether they're a homemaker re-entering the workforce, whether they're someone looking to get their GED, and they can go back to them and say, hey, are you interested in doing maybe a paid on-the-job training experience where you can go work with SharpSpring, you can go work with Exactech,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to go work with them, but they understand that you're going to be learning, and we're going to make sure that you get paid during this process. And for the business, we're reimbursing the business for portions of that depending on the type of program that we're working with, so that
Mm-hmm.
for the business, it's very low risk, and for the participant, it's a great opportunity to learn and grow their skill set. And you create that match, and when those programs are working well, 85% of those businesses are retaining these people after those training periods are done.
So you have a database
Mm-hmm.
of local folks
Sure.
that are working for work. How do you reach out to those people? How do they find out about you?
Yeah, absolutely. We are strongly embedded in the community. I mean, that's the theory behind our board. You know, as we mentioned, there's a lot of seats on that board, but it also means that we have an opportunity to have a lot of ambassadors on our board. So in terms of businesses, they work with us through the Chambers of Commerce. They can walk into any of our career centers and talk with our team and let them know exactly what they're looking for. They're not expected to be experts in what we do. They're just expected to come to us with a need, and our job would be to help fulfill that need in terms of where they want to grow. For workers, for job seekers, for folks who are looking to maybe make a change in their career, you can always walk into the doors of our career centers. You don't need an appointment necessarily. You don't need, likewise, any kind of skills. You just need to have a rough idea of maybe what that small next step is that you want to take. And the nice thing about working with our organization is that you're going to be working with a team that wants to grow a tailored and personalized plan for you. They want to know what you want to do, and then they're going to tell you, here's where the market's going. Let's find something that matches those two.
Mm-hmm. So how are you different from like Monster.com or Indeed or?
Sure.
or
No, I think
some
it's
of
that
those
tailored
other-
approach. The fact
Yeah.
that when you walk through our doors, you're getting access to a full staff that is designed to be there to line up existing resources already, so that you're not putting out-of-pocket costs, so that you may have to submit applications and resumes and so on, but they also have access to businesses that are looking to hire right away. And they're going to work with you to put together a plan and line up resources with you so that you can be competitive for those jobs, or so that you can get in a paid training program as your next step. And we're finding that when you take these graduated steps, businesses are more likely to retain you and keep you on.
So as an individual walking in, first of all, are your services free?
Absolutely.
Everything is free?
You've already paid for them through your tax dollars, and so this is that money coming back, and there's no charge to come through our doors. It's eligibility varies depending on the programs, but it's all about where you're at in life, what you're trying to do for your next step, but you don't have to come through with a check or money or anything.
And you mentioned Jackson Sasser's on your board.
Yes.
So do you have access, or do you do counseling for career growth or expanding your skills, or do you have a relationship with Santa Fe in that way?
Absolutely. They're one of many of our providers, though obviously in this community, you're fortunate to have the nation's #1 community college. It's a great public asset, so they are, I think in terms of the range of distribution for vouchers and training dollars that we provide support for people, the majority of that certainly goes to Santa Fe College and the work that they do.
So I'm someone looking for a career change or a job, or I'm interested in exploring how to increase my value as a worker on the market. I walk into CareerSource. Just take me through what that experience is like for a citizen walking in.
Yeah, sure. So our doors are open to anyone in the community, and those scenarios that you set up are perfect. You might be someone who's coming through our door looking for an opportunity to grow your wages. Let's say you're someone who maybe you've been in bartending for a while, but what you really want to do is figure out a way to grow and get into a more stable, traditional work schedule. So in our case, that person's going to come. They're going to show up at our career center. They don't need an appointment. They'll walk in the doors. And really, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to be greeted, obviously, by our lovely front desk staff, and they're going to ask you to check in. They're going to, and then they're going to set you up with an appointment with one of our staffing specialists. And the goal of that conversation, and what you really want to be focused on when you're having that conversation, is knowing where you want to go for your next steps in terms of your career. So, are you looking to try to change today? Are you open to the idea of maybe going back to school? Are you looking for something where you want to be working today, right now? And from that conversation, they're going to be listening for cues of items that might help line you up with a certain opportunity. So if you tell them, I really like working, I actually learn best by doing things, what it's going to flag for them is something to the effect of, oh, you might be someone who can qualify for one of our on-the-job training programs. All right, so they're going to mark that down. And then you might say something else like, and by the way, I never really finished high school, and I've always wanted to make sure I go back and do that. And so they're going to, okay, well, I need to make sure that this person has an opportunity to maybe get their GED or to go back to school. And they're going to be listening for those flags and those cues and build a plan for you. And depending on where that conversation goes, they're going to look at what your eligibility criteria may be. So that goes back to life circumstance. Do you have certain kinds of income? Were you displaced from work at any point recently? Have you been long-term unemployed? Maybe do you have a doctorate degree, but perhaps you've been working in a field that's not really using that doctorate degree. They're going to be looking for those types of areas where they can line up those resources. And from there, depending on what that is, they're going to look at things like working with you to find a training course. That might get you some classroom-based training on nights and weekends that would help prepare you for, say, a software development job with Gainesville, whether you may do that training through Gainesville Dev Academy or Santa Fe College. And then at the same time, they're probably be looking for something like an on-the-job training opportunity. So you can go to work during the day. You're going to work with a supervisor just like you're an employee. In many cases, you are an employee, and we're reimbursing that business back for working with you. And you're going to have a chance to pair up that classroom training with what you're learning on the job. And that ideally, as those are going along, you're progressing, you're doing well. It's kind of like apprenticeships when people think about it in those terms. And long term, that business is going to realize, oh, you are valuable. Great, we taught you how to do software development the way that we do software development.
Sure.
And as your training starts to come to a close, they're going, great, we can keep this person. Actually, we should maybe move them over, start to give them more responsibility. And as that happens, on our end, you're less and less engaged with us because you don't need the resources necessarily that we have anymore. And all we really need at that point is just information confirming that, yep, you did get employed, you are getting great opportunity at wages, and everything's going well. And if for any reason it doesn't work out, if you start going down that path and you realize, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, I need to look at some new opportunities, or maybe for the business, we liked working with them, but they're really not progressing at the rate we need. We take you back and we start the process over again. And that's what we're designed to be. It's that opportunity to work with you, to help develop you until you end up in that right opportunity where you don't need us anymore.
What are the resources that are available at CareerSource? I mean, do you guys do the standard kind of resume building, and do you have computers available? Do you have counselors there to help people look the part and be prepared for their interview?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a big philosophy and idea behind our career centers is that they are where community resources all come together. They used to be called one-stop centers. I mean, that's the idea. It's a one-stop shop for anything you may need during your job search or job transition period. So yeah, when you walk in our Career Center, there's a resource room in Gainesville right to the right-hand side. You just check in and you can go use those computers to do whatever you need for developing your resume, looking for work on Employ Florida, maybe doing some online trainings if you need to. The centers also provide assessments. So if you want to go work with the city of Gainesville, for example, they require you to have a typing assessment.
Right, I think Alachua County uses it.
And I think Alachua County does as well. And so many of employees come through our centers to, at some point, maybe before they work with us, to go through those assessments. We do orientations and welcome workshops that help, if it's your first time coming to the center or your first time engaging with the workforce system, that help put out an overview of what are all these other resources and opportunities for things like financial assistance, where we do help after you've exhausted things like your Pell Grants or exhausted other kinds of financial aid. Our organization helps to provide that last mile to make sure that if you if you did get 80% of your financial aid covered here, but you just need this final amount to close it out, that's what our system helps to do, is close that out and make sure that you're on a path towards getting work. And then of course our career staffing specialists work with you to actually connect you with the business. We got job fairs going on, over 100 recruitment events each year with, as we mentioned, working with about 1,200 employers. So there's a lot going on in our centers anytime. There's a lot of opportunity to start from scratch wherever you're at.
So I think our region is something like the first or second lowest unemployment in the state right now.
Yeah.
So, theoretically we're doing pretty well as a state in terms of employment, but I think if you look under that a little bit, you realize there's a lot of underemployment and a lot of folks that are still struggling just because the jobs they have are not paying very much. So what is your biggest segment of that population? Is it people that are looking for a second career that are a little bit older? Is it young people? Is it across the spectrum?
I think it's across the spectrum and it ebbs and flows. I mean, certainly right now, a few segments we're getting engaged with more and more. So as unemployment gets lower, in our case, our region I think is in the top 20%. We're always kind of rotating out with a few other counties tied for second, third, fourth lowest unemployment rate. But Florida, our region, are in record unemployment lows. It hasn't been this low of unemployment for 40, 50, 60 years in some cases. And what that creates is an opportunity for our organization to work with populations that traditionally have struggled to re-enter the workforce. So we have some relationships going on right now with Santa Fe College and AARP, where we're working with individuals who might be over 55, haven't been in the workforce for a while, maybe they exited the workforce, or maybe they did maybe they were in the same job for 20, 25 years and now suddenly find themselves in need for working, needing to re-enter the workforce. We're working with a lot of folks from that kind of population. Businesses are also a little bit more willing at times like these to look to populations that maybe traditionally they don't look at, which is a shame, like individuals who might have, who are ex-offenders who may have been through the justice system. We have many of them that are coming out of the correctional system now and they're looking for those next steps. And one of the best ways to make sure someone doesn't end up back into the correction system is to make sure that they have means to gainful employment, to strong income, and a support system around them to make sure that if they do run into a barrier, they have a strong, legitimate way to get through that barrier. And that's part of what our organization is designed to provide, so that if you are going to work every day, maybe you are in one of those on-the-job training experiences, but your car breaks down, or you have trouble getting to work just because you don't have a car. Maybe you've been incarcerated for a while and you don't have that car anymore. Part of our role is to make sure you have things like a bus pass, and you have opportunities to, if you do have a vehicle and it breaks down, that we may be able to help out with that in certain circumstances. So yeah, we're working a lot with individuals who may be in retirement age, individuals who might be coming out of the correctional system, and then we work a lot with youth and young adults. Kind of in our case, it's a specific range of 16 to 24. Individuals who may not be on track to graduate high school, individuals who may be making a decision where college isn't going to be right for them. There are tons and tons of opportunities right now for individuals who want to go straight to work and get paid well and have a good, strong, long-term career. We're working a lot with those types of populations. And if we're doing it well, we're doing things like reducing the income gap, increasing wages for folks, and making sure the business has an opportunity to grow.
So Frank, in our conversations, I know you're very proud of the work that CareerSource does with entrepreneurship training. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So entrepreneurship training for us is really a great opportunity to expand opportunities both for our businesses in terms of how they recruit for individuals, to grow our small businesses and entrepreneurial community in the region, and then help give job seekers and workers this broader toolkit so that as the job market shifts and changes, they have an opportunity to be more resilient. They're not quite as susceptible to the whims of the market with layoffs and those kinds of things. So our organization's had a long history. It is one of the most successful in terms of leading what the workforce system can do to provide entrepreneurship training to constituents in a community, or residents in a community. So in our case, we run programs right now for individuals who may have doctorate degrees and they're coming out of the University of Florida looking to start over. Back in 2011, many people may know a program called Startup Quest that we helped launch. And that was a great opportunity to line up people with great higher education credentials, great research experience, but as happens in markets, universities and government agencies tend to contract and grow and contract. And so when you're in one of those contraction periods, we were able to provide individuals that wanted to work with us an opportunity to say, hey, while this market's not doing too well for a university job, maybe I can go work with the Office of Technology Licensing and maybe see if I can get some kind of startup built out of this and practice applying that expertise in a business sense. And what I think is good is we can apply that philosophy, this idea of putting people through a business boot camp where they get to practice being the boss, where they get to understand what it's like, where they get to simulate what it's like to put together a profit and loss sheet, a corporate budget, HR policies, a marketing plan, product development. When they're going through that type of curriculum, it's creating an opportunity for them to not only know how to form a business, but then as the market does well again, maybe if they don't want to continue being a consultant or being an entrepreneur, now they're a much better employee when they go back to a business because now they know what it's like to be in the boss's shoes. And that's the feedback that we get from businesses that are hiring these participants through Startup Quest, through Own Your Future, which is a training program, an entrepreneurial training program that we're doing for low-income residents. And we're applying it to all sorts of different populations, and we're finding that it helps to get a much better experience for the participant. It's much more quick. It's a more quick opportunity to get trained and grow and learn without having to go through a full semester of college, for example. And it's proving that when you come out of it, you're a much stronger candidate for positions and do better on the job once you get there.
Well, Frank, I can tell you're passionate about what you do, and I appreciate the work that CareerSource does. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We used to write letters to each other a lot. A lot of the notes, they were just really dark.
Expressions of anger. When he was mad, he hit things.
He said something to me about killing himself.
You have to take it seriously. The risk is too great.
You have to try and help them get help.
Tell somebody, tell an adult, counselor, parent, whatever.
What are you going to do? Let them destroy themselves? I mean, I don't see much of a choice at all.